Welcome to another David Rams live stream. And this was actually going to be a podcast, but I thought, why not do it live instead, right? Because, just why not? Why not put some extra pressure on ourselves and do this live on air and make all the mistakes and all that good fun stuff without the editing. And also it gives you guys a great opportunity to get in the comments, live chat, and for us to engage with you like live, which is pretty cool. So we're going to talk about vegans quitting, right? The I'm no longer vegan crowd. And I say we because I've got Lawrence here, Lawrence Anton. I'm going to bring him in now. Welcome, mate. Yeah, you're in. Yeah, just sort of throw you in there, just dive straight in. So you're here today, mate, because we're both vegans, and just in case anyone didn't know that. And we've both got some views on people quitting veganism, right? Oh, apparently they can't hear you. Say hello again. You guys, that's weird if they can't hear you because your audio is right there. Are you sure you can't hear him? You want to try again? Can you hear him now? Simon, let me know. Simon's in the chat. No, they said they can't hear you. How weird is that? That's fucking useful. Oh my God, man. All right. Yeah, so I don't know, mate. I'm so done with this. So we're using a new system right now, and from the off, it's not worked. So what I'm gonna have to do is turn your audio on a Google Meet, please, mate, and then we'll just switch these two round. Stupid shit. All right, so let's just see what happens now. All right. So try speaking, Lawrence.
I can't hear you now.
Yeah, you need.
But can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Everybody can hear you now. Right. So how can you not hear me?
This is going well.
How can you not hear me right now?
Okay, I can see in the chat they're saying they can hear me now.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can't hear you.
What the hell? How is that even possible? See what I told you guys? This is what happens when
let me check my settings
when you do things
Google
live.
Meet.
This is what happens. That's mental. I don't get how it just switched around like that. Let me just check. Oh, I know what it is.
I think it must be something that you've done.
Yeah,
I just
hello
muted myself. Oh, I can.
Yeah, you can hear me now. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. My goodness, that was. I know what it was. All right. So today we're going to discuss why people are quitting veganism, right? And I've got a few theories I'm going to put to Lawrence and see what he thinks. And I'm going to save the theory that I think is the one that is correct, like the most important one, the most likely the one that's causing all these issues that people quitting veganism. I'm saving it for last, okay? So stick around because that's coming up later. And we're also going to talk about what you can do about it. Once we've spoken about why it's all happening, we're going to talk about what you can do about it. So there's a lot to get through, and I'm going to say it one more time that the most important stuff for this stream, or the stuff that is the points that I think are like the most likely to cause, the things that you really should hear, I think, are going to be at the end or near the end, let's say, after a couple of points. So like I said, stick around, guys. So Lawrence, let's get into it, mate. So what actually happened was today I saw somebody else quit veganism, and she had put, not really an excuse as to why. But then I looked through her account and I saw that she'd even been volunteering at animal sanctuaries. Actually, Lawrence, the one that you volunteer at, actually, she's volunteered at. And you know this sanctuary, like we're talking farmed animals here, right? That she'll have spent time with.
Yeah. It's like any sanctuary that anyone's been to that's a farm animal sanctuary. It's just like a classic like animal sanctuary: pigs, chickens, cows. Yeah.
So she'll have spent time with the animals that she's now going to be eating the bodies of and eating the products of as well, like, the dairy and things like that, which is just, it seems like unbelievable. And I think most people jump immediately to like, well, she knows never vegan. She's evil, clearly evil. And I think that's too easy to go to. And it doesn't explain fully like the entire situation. And it doesn't help, I don't think. I don't know. Do you think it helps? Do you think it's a good thing? Should I just drop her a message or a comment being just like, fuck you, you're evil, you're an evil person? Do you think that's going to, what do you reckon?
No, I feel like if someone maybe if someone goes completely the other way and they go like completely like anti-vegan, then maybe give them some, like not aggressive, but just give them a bit.
It doesn't understand. Like, we don't understand it though. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't help us. That's my point. Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping to get to.
Yeah. And it's just gonna. But if you're like aggressive towards them, it's just gonna burn any potential bridges that you could have had with them.
I think you're right. So we'll get. I mean, that we just jumped the gun a little bit actually. There, we talk about what you can do, but actually, I just wanted to make it like clear as kind of why I wanted to come on and talk about this. I think the more we can understand, the better. To understand how somebody even got to this position, and I saw JL was in the chat earlier and talking about Ryback, the wrestler who I did have on for a live stream, and he was claiming to be vegan, and I thought it was for health, and I interviewed him, and he was saying like, oh no, it's all for the animals, bro. Like I looked in their eyes, and I just couldn't do this to them and stuff like that. Now he's not vegan either. Apparently he's now lacto whatever blah blah vegetarian. He doesn't eat meat, but he eats everything else. He's switched too. Now I by the way, I DM'd Ryback and I want to bring him on for a follow up to see what happened. I'm waiting for his response. I don't think I will get a response, to be honest with you, and we'll see how we move forward. If he doesn't respond, I'll keep trying to get him on, but we'll see. But anyway, the point is that it's happening, and some of these anti-vegans are going to be using this as an excuse to kind of like come after us and stuff. And I really don't think that it's veganism is not the problem. So let's talk about the theories one by one, and then if you've got any theories too, Lawrence, like of your own. Pop them in. Otherwise, you can just help. We can just talk about the ones I came up with.
Yeah.
So first thing, that the most common one that people come up with is the health issues, right? Do you think that's the most common one? Would you agree?
Yeah, it is in the theories that vegans come up with about ex-vegans, or the excuse that ex-vegans give?
The excuse they give usually.
Okay, yeah. I would say that's the most like common.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything, or do you just want me to give my opinion?
Go for it. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking perceived health issues here because
yeah. Well, perceived health issues, but like they may also have like genuine health issues, but they're just maybe confused about what's causing it or something like that, or they're just being like too rash in their decision to like start abusing animals again or whatever.
Yeah.
But so with like the health stuff, I feel like, well, first of all, just to like extend an olive branch to them, like I can get where if someone has a genuine like health problem or perceived health problem, like I can get how it can be like just debilitating like to them, and it's something they obsess of the whole time, because if you're not feeling yourself, like it's a shit thing. And because like quite a few years ago, I had a chest infection for like, and this isn't related to veganism at all. This was before I was vegan. I had a chest infection for like between 6 months to a year. It's like a decent amount of time, and it fucking wore me down.
Yeah.
Like I was so like, I was just like I ended up crying at one point because I was just like, I'm so done with this. So I can get where someone's coming from if they're like desperate about some health issue.
Right.
But I don't get how they get from that to I'm going to start paying for animals to be killed again.
Could I ask you, like, while you were going through that chest infection, I just want to make sure, like, you were eating eggs though, right? Because I mean, I'm told that they fix everything, so I mean, you mustn't have been eating eggs then, if it lasted 6 to 12 months. So.
And salmon, and I've got to say, when I ate that salmon, some magical things happened.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, the reason you had it for 6 to 12 months is because you weren't eating enough salmon or enough eggs. Or enough miracle food, beef. That's what it was, mate. But yeah, how do they, back to the point, how do they go from the journey they take from going from like, oh, I have these health issues, to I think it could be my diet, to I'm just going to straight up flip everything on its head and just, I think some of the problem could be from these influencers, these anti-vegan influencers. They have a lot of sway, and especially when they've got all the answers. They're like modern snake oil salesmen. You know what I mean? They're like the modern version of that. They've got all the answers. They're gonna fix every problem you've ever had. All you've got to do is just eat dead animals and loads of them. This is pretty much what they're selling, and obviously all of their supplements too. You got to buy all their supplements. I think it's like a combination of those two things. And yeah, to dig a bit deeper into the perceived health issues, what we always see from these people, or never see, they never bring receipts. I did 10 hours reacting to these people's videos. Not one of them had a receipt like, here are my blood test results, right? And the doctor specifically said it's because of like a plant-based thing that's causing my... None of them had receipts. They were all just like speculating, right? Not one of them brought blood test results, for one. But even if they did, and they would also have to provide evidence that the low whatever in their blood, whatever's the problem, it was caused by a healthy, fully balanced plant-based diet. You know what I mean? They never come with the evidence ever. So they're only perceived health issues. And they try and fix these health issues with some moron snake oil salesman who's like telling them to eat loads of meat. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe like we're gonna get on to the other one, so I don't want to like jump the gun again. But like maybe these things are like somewhat interlinked, because you can have like, you know, other sort of like pressures on you or whatever, and then maybe you get like a health issue or a perceived health issue, and it like breaks you down and makes you vulnerable to those other pressures, if you get what I mean.
Dude.
So for example, like you know, maybe some people, they become vegan and like they do, you know, genuinely like care about what's happening to animals and stuff, but not in this sort of like maybe deep way. It's just like, yeah, it's not nice, but like and you know, they're a bit like alternative because they're vegan now and stuff, and they're like fight, you know, against the system and stuff. And then they get this like perceived health issue or whatever, and it like breaks them a bit down, and they just want to go back to what is comfort and what they remember.
Totally.
So maybe that's part of it as well, which, you know, like in that case, I would just say like grow a fucking moral spine.
Definitely. Definitely. These things, all the theories are definitely linked, and especially they all link into the last one that I'm going to give, the one that I think is most likely to cause, but it's all connected for sure. So yeah, you're totally right. And we can talk now about the second point I actually came up with. That was a lack of a supportive community, which is what you were mentioning there. Like these things can connect, and a perceived health issue could be on top of an already difficult life because of a lack of a community that's supportive. So this could mean anything from they have no vegan community, they have no vegan friends, they have no moral support, they have no emotional support. Or it could also be to the point where it's gotten so bad that for whatever reason, all the vegans in their locality don't like them because they have a different political view, or they have a different, I don't know, different opinion on something vegan or not vegan. Maybe they don't like the Impossible Burger. They say they say the Impossible Burger's not vegan. They say Beyond Meat's not vegan, and the rest of the vegans don't like that. Maybe they're an activist, and the rest of the vegans don't want to do activism. They want to go meet up and have cake. You know what I mean? Cupcake vegan. You know, it could be flip round. Maybe they're a cupcake vegan, and all the other vegans are activists. And do you know what I mean? Like it can be whatever it is. It could be just either having no friends, or it could be having a vegan community that fucking hates them. Right? Either of these two things could drive someone to start questioning their lifestyle. And then when you add a health issue to that, like, and then all these carnivore idiots telling them it's because of veganism, and then either they've got no vegan friends or the other vegans hate them. I mean, you're creating someone now who's starting to feel bad about the way they're living, right?
Yeah, and let me know if my if I'm like jittering or whatever, because I think my internet's a bit dodgy. Yeah, I think with this one, with like a lack of a supportive community, like I think like you know, when people become like sorry, I don't know what that was. When people become like ex-vegan or whatever, like it's easy to like be like, oh, they're the enemy, you know, they're everything that's bad with the world, da, da, da. But like I think we could also use it as an opportunity to like reflect on how we're behaving as well, because I don't know, like the vegan community is not the most like conducive to good mental health, shall we say.
Yeah, it can be
Like,
harsh, and people are very
yeah, it can
judgmental
be
to each other,
harsh.
and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like, definitely throughout the thing that's been going on for the past like 2 years,
Mm.
all over the world, like that meant that everyone was online. There was a lot of stuff happening
Mm.
online, and a lot of people felt like disconnected from the vegan sphere,
Mm.
right? Including myself. Like I felt quite disconnected from the vegan sphere. And I'm not trying to paint myself out as some sort of like whatever, but like if I wasn't, and this would have happened with like other people, like if I or those other people weren't as like didn't have the moral backbone that we
Mm.
have, then maybe it could have meant that like, "Oh, I don't feel engaged with this vegan community anymore.
Mm.
They seem like a bunch of dicks.
Right.
Actually, I'm just gonna disconnect now." And you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater sort of
Yeah.
thing. So I think, and yeah, that's like it's on them as well
Of course,
because
it's
they
on
don't
them.
have like a
Yeah.
moral spine. But also we can look at, could we make that less likely to happen with the
Totally.
way that we behave towards each other?
Absolutely. I can tell you something funny. I don't know if I told you this yet, but there is a vegan out there right now who apparently I've heard is making a cancel video about me. Like they're making a video essay, right? To try to like cancel me, to try to like, expose me or whatever. And this is a vegan. So, with vegans like that, who needs meat eaters? Who needs anti-vegans? Do you know what I mean? When there are vegans doing all the work for them. So yeah, with the existence of these type of people, I mean, that's an extreme example of this, right? That's obviously not everybody's going to have this done about them, and not every vegan's in the public eye. But if the vegans that aren't in the public eye, the ones who are like not as like me, the ones who are like putting their stuff out there, maybe they got social media, whatever. When someone launches some kind of horrible campaign against those people, well, yeah, they're not as strong as someone like me. I'm used to this now. It's been years, but they're not, and they're just like, you could call it like, I don't know if normie's the right word, but yeah, there are like YouTubers, there are like social media people that influency kind of thing. And then there are like people who aren't those things. And the ones who aren't those things are going to take it a lot harder and more likely to end up going down a path that's going to lead them to killing animals again, which is like, really, there's no excuse for it. But yeah, you're not excusing it, you're understanding it, right? That's the difference. You can understand why someone's doing something, but doesn't excuse what they're doing. And this is the point, right? We're just trying to understand how they get there. So totally like we need a more supportive community that can look past differences of opinion and political differences, and for the people that don't have any community, we've got to try and find out a way to get to them, really, right? Try and get them more support. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about celebrities specifically later, or can I talk about them now?
Whenever, man, I don't mind. You want to talk about celebrities?
Yeah. Yeah. So like a lot of, because like I don't know if the rate of becoming ex-vegan is like higher with celebrities. It seems like it is, but maybe maybe it's like I just see it more because they're celebrities, whereas I don't see like your average vegan becoming ex-vegan or whatever. But with celebrities, like obviously I don't know like their personal lives and stuff, and I won't name any specific ones, but I can imagine that given their lifestyles and the fact that they're probably so much on the go with the work they do and stuff, like if they're an actor or an actress or something else, they probably don't have that big a support network in terms of veganism.
Right.
They like, maybe they see it, they think it's like a good thing, so they they become vegan, they like announce it to the world. But again, like two things: one, they might just not have a moral backbone, like a lot of people don't, but also like if anyone's going to get dogpiled, it's going to be a celebrity, like because they just attract so much more attention. So like they could then that might be a reason that they then like go back on it more. Yeah, so I feel like maybe celebrities are more susceptible to it because they don't have as big a support network, but
could be.
Maybe I'm speculating there.
Yeah, it's also probably like, I think a lot of celebrities it's a trendy thing as well. They get they get the vegan audience or the environmental audience, climate conscious audience, health audience. Like they can tap into a lot of different audiences when they, depending on how they put out the message. I mean, there aren't many celebrities that put out the message of like, oh, animal rights for the animals. They're usually like for my health or for the planet. And that health and planet are both like massive, massive polls for like fans, you know, for like progressive fans.
And red flags. Like whenever I hear that, it's always a red flag.
Yeah, you know they're not going to last, right? If you're like, you know, if I devoted my entire account to like climate and health, it would be probably like 10 times the size it is. There is a massive, massive market for these topics, because there's a big virtue signal being pushed here, like in the media and stuff. That, you know, most of the media is behind and supportive of like climate campaigning and stuff like that, like mostly, unless it's like gluing your hands to something. They don't really tend to respond to that favorably, but they are covering like climate crisis news stuff. That they're pushing a lot of messaging that is like, you know, alongside what the activists say. So whereas animal rights is still slandered mostly with the odd nice article, but it's mostly like, it's better these days, but I feel like, the climate justice stuff and the health stuff still has way, way more traction. Celebrities, I think, jump on that bandwagon for sure.
Yeah, another, I don't know if this is exactly like support network. And this is not me saying that this is actually something that happens, but it's just an idea. Like maybe you'll have an opinion on it. But like, do you think it's at all possible where you get ex-vegans who are like flash in the pan, where they become vegan,
right.
They go in really deep with like activism and stuff,
right?
They become very disconnected from like I was going to say the real world, like the outside world,
bubble,
like outside of veganism, and then, you know, maybe they get some sort of like wake up call or something, you know, like a health scare or something like that, and then they think like they don't think that, and then they think like oh shit, like I've completely just disconnected myself from everything else. And then when they want to like recenter or whatever, they have kind of associated like veganism with this like extreme all-in sort of thing. And they feel like if they want to like reconnect with what they were before, they kind of have to ditch veganism as well.
That sounds like some hippy dippy bullshit, but in their heads, I guess it makes some kind of sense. But yeah, of course they do this stuff. Like, I needed to recenter myself, connect with my true self. The veganism wasn't part of it, so I had to leave it behind. It's so fucking stupid. But yeah, they do that. Yeah, you're totally right. That's especially like these influencers that are into all the spiritual bullshit. Like, honestly, if an influencer goes vegan and they're a spiritual kind of influencer, it's just a matter of time before it's like, when are they going to stop being vegan? It's not an if. Like, if they're all like I've seen so many vegans who like started juicing and then all of a sudden it's like they're introducing honey. That's the first thing that comes back, and then they're like start bitching about veganism, and then the next thing it goes and goes and goes. Then milk comes back because then I realized milk has these spiritual properties. Sadhguru taught me. You know, it starts to get like ridiculous. You know, and so. Totally, you're right. You're totally right. That's some hippy dippy bullshit, though. I'm not on board with that whatsoever.
So what you're saying is, if you go to your vegan friend's house and they have a juicer, keep an eye on them.
I mean, we have a juicer, but yeah, mate. We just got it recently, literally yesterday, and really cheap, like cheapest one I could find in Turkey. So you're like, you know, you're thinking like, oh, is this going to be, you know, what am I buying right now? The thing is amazing. I'm so surprised.
Yeah,
like,
to be fair, I made the joke. I do actually want to get one because I want to start drinking celery juice. Apparently, it's good for climber's elbow. But
okay,
anyway.
Cool. Well, yeah, it's so cool. You put the stuff in the top, right, and it doesn't spin it. My one just like slowly crushes it, like in this circle, like very slowly, and then it's like it's so cool. Spits out the pulp at the end. I couldn't believe it. I thought I couldn't believe how good it. Anyway, sorry, getting distracted about juices. I was just amazed at how this thing was working, to be honest. So now we've got the next point. So this linked with the last point. So I talked about pressure from vegans on other vegans, like vegans being assholes to other vegans, right? This is something we see a lot. Now, there's another type of asshole that will cause somebody potentially to start looking at like not being vegan. And this is non-vegans, of course, because it's not only pressure from vegans that vegans get, unfortunately, it's pressure from the non-vegans around them. Social pressure from people that don't understand why they're vegan, don't want to understand why they're vegan. And we're talking about your uncle at Christmas dinner. We're talking about your co-workers on lunch breaks. We're talking about, this kind of nonsense, and which it's usually playful and sometimes not, but it grinds on you, right? I mean, after day after day after day after day of people taking the piss out of you, making fun of you, it starts to like have a bit of an impact, and it doesn't make you think I don't want to be vegan anymore, but subconsciously, I mean, you start to feel bad, don't you? It's something that could be a part of the reason somebody starts to question their life choices,
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I definitely think it contributes to it. I mean, like humans are like social animals, right? Often we don't want to like stick out in like a way that's perceived as negative, which like veganism still is like in most circles anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that like this one would happen more to people who don't have the support network.
Totally.
Because like even for me personally, I can remember going like when I don't go to that many activist events anymore, but like when I used to go to them like all the time, you would like chat about like, haha, this idiot the other day said to me, da 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 da, and you get to like you turn what was the bad thing into something that you can laugh about or whatever. But if you don't have like that support network, then maybe it just keeps on grinding on you and grinding on you and grinding on you.
Right.
And maybe eventually you can get to the mental state of like maybe they have a point, like maybe I'm making like a big deal out of what's happening to animals when I shouldn't be, or something like that.
Right. You can start to try to convince yourself that like, oh, maybe I've got it wrong and all these people are right. And especially, you said if you don't have a social network, community, what about if you've got the opposite of that? What about if you've got a community of vegans that are being horrible to you and you've got the social pressure? So, for example, there are a lot of vegans, I'd probably say myself included, that have opinions that don't toe the line for the mainstream vegan world. Like, you know what I mean? I've got opinions that are seen as controversial to the mainstream vegan world, which is why someone's making a slam video about me and trying to like take me out, right? Now, let's look if someone else is the same as me or whatever, they're vocal about their opinions or whatever, and then they've got all their local vegan community hates them because of it, because they don't toe the line on other topics. So it's been horrible to them. Then they've got the people around them, and there could be people around them that they share opinions on, right? So they have like, imagine like, so the stuff that the vegans disagree with them on, imagine they have people around them that agree with them. However, these people make fun of them because they're vegan. So this is a situation where, did you see what I'm getting at here? So imagine someone says, I don't know, they say, I don't think the borders should be free. I don't believe in open borders, right? All the vegans around there are mad because they're like, fuck you, you're a horrible bigot, blah, 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 right? Imagine this is what's going on. They go to their friends and they have similar political beliefs. Their friends are like, yeah, we also agree with you on that. But their friends roast them for being vegan. So it's not, you know what I mean? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, okay, well, these people support me on the other stuff, but they roast me for being vegan. Like, and these people don't support me on everything, but they're vegan. Maybe I'm more aligned with these people that support me on all the other stuff, and maybe I'm wrong about veganism. Do you see my point? This could create that, couldn't it?
Yeah, and I think maybe someone could be listening to you and thinking like, okay, like they're getting like shit from both sides, but what makes them go in the ex-vegan direction? Right. And I think the difference is that like if you're with your non-vegan friends and they agree with you generally, or they just don't really care what your opinion is, but then they give you a bit of shit for being vegan, generally it's mostly playful, or at least they're not calling you a bad person. They maybe just think you're silly or something like that. Right. Whereas in vegan spaces, if vegans disagree with you on other, like on political issues, they will call you a bad person, or a bigot, or a fascist, or whatever.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the difference. Like you're getting pushed away from the vegan sphere because they're like they're saying
They're
things
attacking
like
you.
negating. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
attacking you. Whereas with the other one, it's just kind of banter.
Total. No, that's a really, really good point. Like, for example, one of your mates wouldn't go online and make a slam video about you, right? Like about why your veganism is bad or whatever. But your vegan friends, your vegan, well, not friends, your vegan community, who apparently is like supposedly, you're together fighting the system. They're so quick often to just turn on you and call you all kinds of names because maybe you disagree about, like I said, immigration, or you disagree about, I don't know, other stuff. Unwanted pregnancies. I can't say the A word, but you know what I mean. Like stuff like that. Maybe disagree on that. Maybe, there's lots of things you might disagree on, but yeah, you're totally right. It seems like there's more chance of someone in the vegan world flipping out and trying to get your life cancelled, like trying to get you cancelled from all the groups, like don't come to our events, don't come and hang out with us, you're not welcome, versus like, there's not many other kind of groups of people that would do that to you, if that makes sense. Like it seems...
but to be fair to the vegans, they are just trying to make an inclusive vegan community. So.
Yeah, of course. We've got a comment, by the way, a super chat from the Vegan Potterhead. Thank you so much for the £5 donation. It says, I'm a spiritual person and I wouldn't dream of going back to animal products. There is absolutely nothing spiritual about murder and objectification. Of course, and yeah, what I said earlier definitely doesn't apply to you then. I just see as a red flag. Normally, these spiritual types, they chat a load of shit, and then, like I said, they start introducing honey and stuff like that. But that's great, Vegan Potterhead. I'm glad that you're not one of them. Please keep doing your best to get to these people and tell them what veganism is really about, that it's not just some fad that they can use to try and raise the spiritual connection, because that's what they go for. They're trying to do, right? And then they see some spiritual meat eater and everything changes. Spiritual meat eater. So
raise their vibrations,
exactly. So social pressure is definitely, it comes into it, for sure. And as we said, combining social pressure with a community that doesn't like you, a vegan community that doesn't like you, or lack of a vegan community, bad things are going to happen. Now we're at the point that I think is the one that I think this is the most important one. This is the one that has the most power, the most influence out of all of these. I think it's all connected, but this one really, really does it, right? So I think the number one reason, the number one influence that is making vegans stop being vegan is anti-vegan propaganda. Now, that might sound like a conspiracy theory, but let me just explain what it means, and then Lawrence, you can comment and add your points too. So what's happening is every single vegan in the entire world is living in a constant state of defense, always defending ourselves constantly. You might not agree with me there, but you will in a minute. So it's not just about your Uncle Dickhead at the Christmas dinner or whatever thing you celebrate. It's not just your vegan community, as we said earlier, that was something, if they're coming after you. It's not just your mates and the social pressure of maybe your parents or whatever. This is all, okay, apart from the vegans, the other stuff is anti-vegan propaganda, right? It's not just that. It's not just the anti-vegan YouTubers either, with all their propaganda and these carnivore dieters. It's not just those guys as well. That's also a part of it. These are all things you can consciously see and be like, you can, as Lawrence said earlier, grow a spine and face up to those things because they're directly in your face. The more dangerous propaganda is the stuff that you're not consciously recognizing. You walk out of your house, Burger King, McDonald's, KFC ads everywhere. Supermarket ads on billboards for meat everywhere. You turn on the TV, what do you see? Your favorite series, what are they eating? It's not vegan, right? They're eating, you don't even see it most of the time. You put on a movie, if they're eating, what are they eating? Mostly not vegan. When people talk about animals on TV or on movies, are they vegans? Are they animal rights? No, mostly not. Whenever animals are on screen, they're being used as objects or for resources, or they're on someone's plate. We are in a constant state of needing to defend ourselves, not just like verbally saying, no, you're wrong, but up here. This is what I think is causing the biggest problem for vegans. And I think it's not like I'm blaming it on that. I think it is the fault of the individual. And I'm going to explain why that is in a minute. So Lawrence, what are your thoughts on that, first off?
Yeah, I definitely think it will contribute to it. because again, like I was saying before, a lot of, you know, this isn't every human. I would say like this probably applies less to vegans just from the nature that we've kind of stepped outside of the mainstream. But like generally humans, they like to be in the mainstream. They don't want to stick out in a way that's again perceived as negative or something like that. And so if you're constantly, again, like if the norm was veganism, so many more people, all the people that don't have moral backbones, so many more of them would be vegan because people want to be aligned with the norm. And so given the norm is non-vegan and it's constantly being pushed in your face, even if it's not like conscious, it's subconscious, it will help to at least make that like path to being an ex-vegan easier for the people who are going to be more vulnerable to it. I don't know if you have an opinion on like what specific type of person is going to be more influenced by that, because
I do.
If I speak, okay. Well, so if I speak personally, like for me, I don't know what sort of person I am in terms of like categorizing myself in like how susceptible I am to these things, but like for me, it probably does go in like subconsciously, but like when I see an advert, like I'm so like I see it and I'm like, fuck's sake. Or I see another thing, fuck's sake, fuck's sake, fuck's sake. So like for me, I'm quite consciously aware of like the things that maybe you're talking about, but there's like I will still like maybe the way that like you know, people speak about nutrition and stuff like that, like when people say meat, they really mean protein, like subtle linguistical things like that maybe you don't pick up on, and it all just goes to support the fact that like abusing animals is like the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you asked, what do I think the type of person that would be swayed by these things? And I don't think it's a specific type of person. I think what happens is, my theory is what happens is you first go vegan, right? And everybody, when they go vegan at first, they dive in head first. They learn all the stuff. They get lots of information. They go see sanctuaries. They get involved with local vegans. It's a learning curve. And then it's this huge curve. It goes boom like that. And they could not be more vegan. They're like, I will never, ever do this to animals. I am a vegan for life, because all the information's there. And it's like, they just exited the matrix. They've literally just woken up. They're out of the matrix, right? But then what happens is it shoots up and they start to stop learning. It starts to go flat. So they've learned everything, right? But now it's flat. And the problem is now, I don't think it's the type of person that's the issue. I think complacency is the issue. Complacency leads to a disconnect, because now you're like, well, I know everything, right? And then you're sitting there complacent, like I'm comfortable with who I am and what I'm doing, right? And this is when you're the weakest. This is when your mind is the weakest. You've hit complacency, because the thing is, if you're not actively vegan, that means you're passively vegan. But guess what? Guess who is active? Animal Ag. And they've got literal millions and millions of dollars. I think it might be even $1 billion, something like that. I can't remember the number. They put into PR, media, and marketing, right? So they've been studying this for years. They've got experts on psychological manipulation. So if you're passive, i.e. you're not actively learning and looking into, not reminding yourself, but just actively conscious of why you are vegan. You are learning, you are reading up on it, you're reading books, you're listening to podcasts, you're watching videos, whatever it is. If you're not active, you're passive. And then your brain is open, and these guys have got the best tools available, literally the best tools in the world to try and get you to stop being vegan. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is fact. They have the tools, they have the experience, they have the lobbyists, they've got everything set up, and they're active every single minute of every single day. And the second you become passive, the chances of you getting manipulated by these people goes higher and higher and higher. And then add to that any perceived health issue, add to that a lack of a supportive community, add to that social pressure, and you being passive. You are an ex-vegan. Just it's happening, right? Because you add those things together. What chance do you think you have against all of that put together? What chance does anyone have against all of that put together? Now the thing is, this doesn't give somebody a free pass. You let this happen. These people let this happen by becoming passive and complacent. They allowed this to happen to themselves. So it's still their fault, and they don't get a free pass for going ex-vegan. But it's so important for any vegan watching this, any vegan in the world, that you stay active. I don't mean become an activist, although that would be great. I mean active in your mind, because the more you're learning, the more active you are, actively involved in why you're a vegan, going to animal sanctuaries, not just to pet the animals or the cute animal, which is great, but also ask the sanctuary owner, what happened to this animal? How did they get here? What was their history? Learn, not remind yourself. That's the wrong way of putting it. Teach yourself, learn about these animals, learn where they came from, and get the education and the knowledge, and get all of the reasons and the strength that comes from that, the strength of mind that comes from this stuff. And don't let yourself become complacent. That's a lot, Lawrence. I went on a bit there. Go on. What do you think?
So I was just trying to think, like, like I said before, like I used to do a lot. And I know when you were talking about complacency, you're not talking about activism specifically. You're just talking about being engaged with animal vegan stuff generally, like maybe watching vegan YouTube, or going to a sanctuary, stuff like this, engaging with it. Not is that what you mean by complacency, basically?
I mean, as in. So for example, right? Let's imagine that in another world, just to make this, let me think what I'm going to do right now. If the entire world wanted you to believe that the sky was pink, right? Eventually, you would start seeing it as pink. You would need to remind yourself, or like push yourself daily to not forget, to not let your brain be convinced that it's pink. You know what I mean? Like, this is some, if I mean, the power of billions of people to convince you of something is in these industries, they have a lot of power. That's my point here. So you've got to find ways to continuously remember why it's blue, right? Now, with animals, it's not remembering. It's not necessarily like you forget that they are who they are and what happens to them, but you've got to immerse yourself and stay active, because the world is trying to tell you that they're resources, and they've got more power than, billions of people have got more power than you, just one, or like not that many vegans, right? So you've got to fight. You know what I mean? You're already at a disadvantage. So, and then if you're not learning, if you're not reading, if you're not watching, you disadvantage yourself so much more, right?
Yeah. So it's like, if you're complacent and not constantly sort of reaffirming, how would you want to put it? Reaffirming your recognition of what's happening to animals, or your
growing your knowledge, growing your intellect,
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You mean sort of like, if you're complacent, then maybe these ideas creeping in of like, well, maybe what's happening to animals isn't as bad as I used to thought, or something like that, or like maybe me as an individual being vegan isn't that big a deal, and maybe
absolutely,
or something like that. These sorts of things start to creep in.
Of course they do.
Okay, yeah, I get what you mean. I definitely think like that could like happen to someone, but I'm just thinking, like, could that happen to anyone, or are there certain people that are prone to... Well, I'm
anyone.
sure I'm sure you think, because I'm just trying to think. I'm just maybe obviously I'm going to be biased, because I'm going to try and think I'm a better person than
Do you
I
think
am.
you're the kind of guy that this doesn't happen to?
Well, the thing is, I'm trying to think, because when you were first talking about complacency, I was thinking, am I complacent? Because I used to do a lot more activism than I do now. I occasionally do stuff. I organize sanctuary trips sometimes, but I do way less than I was before. And I'm trying to think, am I any less committed? But then when you start to talk about complacency more, then I realized I'm not. You're talking about something else, because I still watch a lot of vegan YouTube. But most of my friends are still vegan, even if I'm not doing actively stuff about veganism with them. Like, for example, I went climbing last night with a vegan. Like, it had nothing to do with veganism, but even while we were climbing, we chatted shit about carnists, right? So it's like, even that is like reaffirming. So I'm trying to think, like, if I was in a situation where none of that, maybe let's say I moved to a different country and I didn't have a social network around, and it was a country where veganism just wasn't really a thing. and I stopped watching vegan YouTube, would those sorts of things try to like start to creep into my mind? Like, obviously, I'm going to say no because I think I'm a better person than I am. And I don't think they would. But, like...
The answer is yes.
I don't know. I haven't run the experiment.
The thing is, mate, you're trying to tell everybody here in the chat and that you can outdo like 50 years of experience and billions of dollars of advertising and psychological manipulation. And the answer is no, you can't. Like, you, just like everyone else in the world, you buy things that you buy because of something you saw somewhere else. You do the actions you do because some marketing company somewhere has got into your head. Now, the difference is between veganism and every other general stuff is that we have a specific moral code with veganism. So yeah, the usual tactics from the meat industry won't work on a vegan, right? We won't go into a shop and be like, oh, I just fancy a steak because 2 days ago I saw the steak ad. It doesn't work like that for us. We might be tempted for a vegan steak because we saw an ad for something that was like, but we have the code. What I'm saying is, what can crack you? What can make you crack and start to consider and give into their propaganda? And my theory is what makes most people crack is complacency, and complacency leading to a disconnect, because they stop going to sanctuaries. They stop watching videos that explain what happens in animal ag, or just stop videos. They stop looking into why they are vegan, and maybe they start to look at things just like, I don't know, vegan athletes or vegan recipe makers. And that stuff that's not going to cut it. That will not help you stay strengthened against animal ag propaganda. In my opinion, the only stuff that's going to help you to keep a strong mind against animal ag propaganda is animal rights content. That doesn't mean you got to watch Dominion 5 times a year. It means like read articles, read news stories about what some pig farmer just did. Like they're in the Guardian, they're in the Independent. There's in the UK, in the States, they're covering some stuff. Like, stuff happens in animal ag, and news covers it. There are articles being written by like Surge, for example, Earthling Ed's activism group. There's articles being written by Mercy for Animals. Even PETA has articles. So you don't need to watch stuff. You can read stuff. If you want to watch stuff, there are ethical vegan YouTubers who make, like animal rights vegan YouTubers. Like Earthling Ed talks about animal rights philosophy quite a lot. There's loads. I off the top of my head, I can't list off. There's Danny Lifting Vegan Logic talks about ethic. What my point is that you don't need to, this doesn't need to be all you do. But if you don't do anything, and all you're doing, if you don't watch or see anything, that's bad. If you're only looking at recipe stuff because now you just think that's nice and just it's becoming, you know what I mean? You're opening yourself up to be propagandized.
I got 2 things.
Yeah.
One of them is anecdotal, so you can take it or leave it.
No, man. Everything's anecdotal here, man.
And as Tim Spears says, I'll leave it. So the first anecdotal thing is, so I've got a friend, I won't mention her name because it will boost her ego, but she, I think, has been vegan for like between 7 and 9 years, something like that, right? And I think initially she became vegan because she saw like Earthlings or something like that. And then I only met her and became her friend like 2 years ago, something like that.
Right.
And through like getting to know her and talking to her, I found out that like basically that whole time from becoming a vegan to meeting me, she was totally disengaged from the vegan. She was the only vegan. Like maybe occasionally she met other vegans,
right,
or whatever.
Yeah.
But like she didn't watch vegan YouTube. She didn't have any vegan friends.
Right.
That's why when I got to know her, we talked about veganism so much.
Okay.
Because so it's like, obviously, like it wasn't like I was standing over her shoulder all those years. I didn't even know her.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how much she was exposed to animal rights stuff. Maybe she was occasionally reading articles and she just never mentioned to me or whatever.
Right.
But she seems, from what I know about her, she seems like the most disconnected you can be from veganism while still being vegan. She's Australian, so in Australia, as like a Western country where veganism is more known than maybe in other parts of the world. and yet she still very strongly believes in animal rights, and she was pretty disconnected.
Yeah. Except, yeah, the exceptions just prove the rule, though. There will be exceptions. There will be exceptions. I can talk. This is anecdotal too, but look at myself. My mum raised.
I'll leave it.
You know, my mum raised me as an ethical vegetarian. Just basically, we were just ethically against meat. And then once she found out about dairy and eggs and all the other industries, she went vegan. Then I went vegan. My first 10 years of being a vegan, I knew no vegans. I saw no vegan content. All I knew was I needed to get vegan food. But I'm an exception, not because of I'm just got this great mental strength. It's because I was raised from a baby being told that animals are not here to put here as resources, even though we were hypocrites in the beginning, with dairy and eggs, right? But the point is, my mum raised me that way. That's what it took to create someone of my mental fortitude, right? And obviously, I'm just by the way, it's not really mental fortitude with me. I'm just a stubborn asshole. I just genuinely if someone tells me to do something, I immediately want to do the opposite. That's my personality. If that's you, then you're probably, this advice maybe doesn't apply to you. If you're a stubborn asshole like me, for example, the last 2 years with the government telling us what to do all the time, I do this, do that, do this, do that. My God, I was just I am going to do the opposite of everything the government says. I don't care. I'll pay the fines. I'll go to jail. And then I was like, no, I can't do that because
I'm going to go into an old people's home and cough in all their faces.
Not quite that much, but I hated it. I really hated it. I hated being told what to do all the time, and my freedom's restricted. I was in Athens, and they were like, no, you got to stay in now. It's lockdown. The only thing you can go out for is if you text the government. You can go out for exercise or to the shops. And I was like, all right then. I'm going to go out. I don't need to exercise. I'm not going to exercise. And I'm not going to the shop, but I'm going to go out anyway. And I text them being like, I'm going to the shop. And I go to no shop. I just do it, walk around the city, tourism, and then go home. And I'd be like, fuck them. This is my attitude. This is my personality. I can't, if you're like me, then maybe this isn't as applicable to you. But most people are not stubborn assholes. Most people didn't get raised with strong ethics towards animals. And most people don't have the mental fortitude of your friend. We're talking about the general individual here, the general person. My messaging is here. And as well, by the way, the stuff I'm saying to do, to stay connected to animals through and finding out their stories in sanctuaries, reading about them, reading articles, watching videos. This isn't going to, if you are already stubborn or you have a good, strong mind, it's not going to hurt you. It's still a good thing to do. So even if you don't fall into this, even if you are an exception to the rule in my idea, that's my theory, that my theory is the rule applies to most. But even if you're an exception, still do this stuff, right? It's not going to cause any harm, is it? It's going to make you stronger.
I got another, I got another question for your theory as well.
All right.
But it may seem like I'm only taking shots, but I think it's definitely part of the puzzle. But my other question is, so you're saying you think this sort of complacency is a key factor, or maybe do you think it's maybe the biggest factor, or you just think it's part of the puzzle?
Of course, it's the biggest factor. It has to be. There's not billions of dollars or millions of dollars and years of experience, and some of the best experts in the manipulation of the masses. These people are not behind tricking you into thinking you've got a health issue, or somebody thinking they've got a health issue, or they're not behind vegans being assholes to other vegans, or these are not the things. Well, I suppose the health issues thing they are behind, possibly, because they try to convince people who've got a health problem that it's caused by the diet. So yeah, they are behind that. Actually, the social pressure, they're behind that too. Non-vegans pressuring you. Why are they pressuring you? Well, partly because they feel guilty, but partly because everyone's telling them, these big industries are telling them that meat is healthy. So actually, yeah, I think this is the biggest thing, because you know what I mean? It's even involved in the other stuff.
So here's my question: if you think that is the biggest thing, think about all of the ex-vegans that come to mind.
Yep.
Do you think they were complacent?
Yes.
Because a lot of the maybe not celebrities, but a lot of the people that either I've met personally who are now ex-vegan, or I've heard, or who that I've heard about from others, but they aren't celebrities or anything. They're just other people in the vegan community or whatever. None of them struck me as that sort of person. None of them were, they were still somewhat maybe all their friends would or like a lot of their friends were vegan still,
Yeah.
or they were still engaged in stuff.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
It doesn't matter though. Like if all your friends are vegan and you're all just meeting up to have lunch and stuff, like how is that giving you strength to fight against animal ag propaganda? Like how is that really okay, you've got a good community, that's good. You've got a good community. But this is what I mean. If you're just meeting up to eat cupcakes, that's not going to strengthen your mind. If you're just hanging out with people who care about animals, that's not going to strengthen your mind. Like the propaganda they've got, the teams they've got are like significantly advanced. Add that to the fact, like I said, that billions of people do not agree with you, and they are all, you know, most people like are really not anti-vegan, but they think vegan's crazy or whatever. You know, even if someone seems like they're invested, this is why we get shocked. We're like, oh, but they were so good. They were hanging out with all the vegans. Oh my God, how are they ex-vegan? Because they had clearly become complacent. They had their little community. They were going eating their little vegan brunches. Okay, but what happened to the animals? When was the last time you spoke about animals with this person? And I bet you no one remembers. They're like, oh, I don't know actually. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So you think like, so like if someone is like a, because I don't know if we want to like mention them but like mention names.
Okay.
But like I can think of a few people who were like, I think pretty active up until they became non-vegan.
Yeah, there are other reasons.
Or ex-vegan.
There are other reasons.
Yeah, so you think those would be other reasons?
There are other reasons, but I think this is the biggest one. And I think for example, they connect. So for one reason people quit I didn't touch, it could be linked. Actually, no, this is a whole separate point. Is sometimes people have like a very bad emotional situation with a vegan, and they would associate their...
You know exactly who.
They would associate, you know, veganism with this thing. So, for example, if, say, someone was trying to get with a vegan, trying to date a vegan, and this vegan rejected them in a really horrible way, they might just throw the baby out with the bathwater and be like, you know what, fuck all of it, even though they were, like, before claiming to be, like, ethical or whatever. But again, the reason I say that the anti-vegan propaganda, I think, is the biggest one, is because without the anti-vegan propaganda, if somebody had a very, very horrible, like if somebody got rejected and it hurt their feelings or whatever, they wouldn't quit veganism unless they had been propagandized. Do you see my point? Like if the whole world was totally chill with vegans and there's no anti-vegan propaganda and most people are vegan, except there's like maybe like, I don't know, 20% of people who aren't, then if someone had this situation where something very emotional happened, they wouldn't quit veganism over it because it's the norm. The reason they quit is because it's not, you know, the propaganda, it's not the norm. So it's like they throw it all out. They're like, fuck it. You know what I mean? So I think it's connected. But of course, there's a lot of subtleties as well. Like it's not black and white. There are a lot of gray areas here.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's part of it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I would be like if I moved to another country and I just wasn't engaged with like veganism or animal stuff at all. Like maybe it would like at the very least slip to the back of my mind, or whatever.
It would take a long time. I'm not saying you would do it. I'm just saying like, you know, I think another form of complacency is, or it's almost like we shouldn't be overconfident on these things. Like we shouldn't. We don't even know. We can't control our own minds, right? You got to realize that we're completely hopeless at this. So, you know, you got to understand that, like, and propaganda, the whole point of it usually is to get into your head without you realizing it's there. And we're all susceptible to it. So the more that we're aware of it, the more that we're consciously like aware of like propaganda can get in my head. It can get in my head. I will not let it get in my head. And we need to remind ourselves of that point daily. Like, never let this get in your head. And what's a good way to strengthen ourselves and defend ourselves against propaganda is what I've said, is to constantly educate yourself and learn about what happens to animals, about the systems, about why did you go vegan? Like, don't just say, oh, it's for animals. Get more reasons then. Because you've got the one reason, like, okay, what happened when we go vegan? I saw this. And then you learn something else. And you're like, that's another reason I'm vegan now. And you learn something else. And that's one more reason that I'm vegan. You learn something else. And you will never stop learning. There is always something more to look at. There's always a new news article. There's always a new you know, there's always something new to see, or a new video to see, or a new documentary about you know, not always graphic. You don't always have to watch graphic documentaries, but there are always documentaries about, you know, the food industries and stuff. There's a lot to get there, and I think that's how we strengthen and against this kind of propaganda. And just knowing the propaganda's there is also, you know, that's good as well. Just to be aware of it is also helpful, I think.
Yeah, I think the reason that I'm like, I think because they're all so interconnected, I'm struggling to like separate them out. And
B12.
Like,
yeah, it'll happen, mate. It'll happen. Don't worry. This is a sign that you're on your way, actually, to going ex-vegan. Yeah, it's all right, man. Well, we just need to get you some couple of sprays of some like that under the tongue. A little bit of B12.
well, should we reveal the surprise now that this is actually my ex-vegan coming out stream?
Yeah, this is what we set this up for. So what can people do about this then? So I think that's a good topic. We've talked about how people can strengthen their own minds against propaganda, and I think that's a message that I want every single vegan in the world to hear. And I think I will potentially do a separate video that's just like, you know, 8 minutes, maybe something short, just, you know, strengthen your mind against propaganda, like bang it out, and it's easier to share and stuff. But what can we do about the people who quit? Because I saw some people in the chat earlier on that were like, shame them, name and shame the quitter. And I've seen on the other side of it, well, not on the other side, but I've seen more reasonable takes, like people like Danny, Lifting Vegan Logic. He does like very rational takedowns of people, you know, argues. And I've done this kind of stuff before too. And then I've seen vegans in the comments of some of their videos and posts giving them shit. What's the best advice, do you think, for people to do if they come across a quitter, for vegans to do? What do you think's the best thing they should do?
Well, yeah. So I think there's yeah. So like with your specific question, like when someone's actually quit, and like how to actually deal with them then, because I think a separate issue is like, how can we all behave generally to foster an environment where people are going to quit less or feel like they can come back more? And then there's also the other thing of like, you personally, how can you make it less likely that you would become an ex-vegan? But like, if someone has already become one, and like you've got an opportunity to interact with them, like, first, like if you want to judge them in your mind, go for it, like whatever. But in your communication with them, it probably best not to be too judgmental in the way you speak to them. Like, be firm and say, look, I disagree with what you've done, and you know, I think, you know, you need to recognize that now you're abusing animals again. I don't know, maybe word it in a more subtle way or whatever.
That's gonna go down real well.
But like, I wouldn't, you know, call them names or say, I think you're a bad person or something like that. You can say, I think what you're doing is wrong, but calling them a bad person, I don't think that's fruitful in any way. Maybe ask them like the reasons why, but even that can make them feel like they're put on the spot and push them away.
The word why
so it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, the word why is one to avoid. If you're ever trying to find out why someone's doing something and the thing they're doing is perceived to be bad, never ask the word why. It is just such an emotionally charged word. For example, like Lawrence, if I said to you, why do you have a beard? You know, there's nothing bad about having a beard.
I didn't feel like a proper man before.
Right. But there's nothing bad about having a beard. But if I ask you, it can easily be perceived as me disagreeing with why you have a beard, depending on my tone of voice. And imagine if I text you that, why do you have a beard? You could read that as, why do you have a beard? Or you could read that as, why do you have a beard? You just, you know what I mean? This is something, it's like a beard. Who gives a shit? But when it's vegan stuff, if you're messaging them, why are you not vegan anymore? Like, that's not going to be perceived as, hey, I was just wondering, why are you not vegan anymore? It's not going to be perceived that way, because it isn't that way. And it is immediately combative. A better way to ask the question would be something like, what's inspired you to go down this route, right? Or tell me what made you change your mind about veganism. That's a really good question, actually. What made you change your mind about veganism? What made you change your mind? I'd like to hear more about the process, like how you got to this place. These are all open easy to answer questions that'll make them feel like you're just interested in what happened. And because you are, aren't you? I mean, you know, at this point, you just want to know what happened, right? You're not messaging them to be a dick and like try and make them feel guilty. Not yet. That comes later. You need to first of all acknowledge like what happened. Why did this happen? Without using the word why, because trust me, that will just go tits up right away.
Yeah, I would maybe on like a completely practical point as well. If you're like sending someone a message about this, like if you're not talking to them in person, if you're sending a message to them, I would actually probably just avoid text altogether. I would go voice note or phone call because then they can hear your tone of voice,
Right.
and there's way less likelihood of them misunderstanding how you're coming across.
Depending on how angry you are. I mean, I think that,
Well, yeah,
again,
true.
before even stepping out into the world to do one of these calls or texts, it's important to get yourself grounded and calm down.
Yeah, meditate for 5 minutes.
Right. Because if you get into this heated, it's not, the outcome isn't going to be good. I mean, excuse me, wow, I burped while talking. The outcome's not going to be good. Probably the outcome's not going to be good either way, but you want to increase the chances that it will be good. So I agree with you. You're right. I think the tone of voice over a call is going to go down most likely better than a text. So reach out to them and yeah, try and figure out why. But I guess, I mean, what are we hoping for here? The aim, I suppose, would be that they just realize and then they go back to being vegan or whatever. But we all know that that's probably not going to happen, at least not by this conversation. So I think the goal is to, I guess, like we do with non-vegans, to try and plant one of the seeds that could lead them to going vegan, right? This should be the goal of the conversation at this point. If they're being reasonable and they're open to discussing without being an asshole, that's a pretty sensible goal, I would say, just to try and plant one of many seeds that they'll have, hopefully, and try to keep the door open and let them know that, you know, like you're still you can help them if they've got questions and stuff like that. Because you want to see them go back to a life that doesn't do this to animals. You know what I mean? I think coming from that place is probably good if you want to actually influence that one individual.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling to come up with advice because it's so dependent on the person
Right.
and the situation they're in,
Right.
and the reasons that you suspect they've done it for, and all of this sort of stuff. It's like it's so dependent on that person. But yeah, I think what we've said so far is like good general advice.
Yeah. Someone's just left a comment now, Tylen, who says the topic isn't that anymore. But as an ex-vegan, the point about what creates ex-vegans is disconnect from animal rights was pretty spot on. So that's pretty cool. It's anecdotal, obviously, but Tylen, I'm glad first of all that you realized that and that you're reconnected and now you're vegan. And thank you for approving my theory, because I feel strongly about it. I do. I feel. That it could be a theory that makes sense, and I'll keep testing though. And if there are more people out there that have gone through this, please drop me an email. I'd like to get some of your experiences. But all right, what about quitters then? So yeah, contacting them privately, I think, if you want to help that individual person and they're being reasonable. What about if they're being unreasonable? What about if they're coming out and they're like, I've realized that animals are just whatever. I should never have cared too much about them. I was being soft. I was being a pussy. Now I realize that they're just food. I'm going to eat loads of them. I've missed out on like 4 years of beef. I'm going to eat enough beef to like make up for the 4 years of missing. I'm going to go to a steak restaurant. I'm going to get this leg, like a literal leg of a cow, like the tomahawk steak. I'm going to get a picture of myself chewing on it and put it up on all my social medias. What if they go down that road? And they're just being like completely unreasonable and horrible. What do you think people should do in that
if that's the case, I think they're fair game, to be honest.
Oh yeah, open season.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe again, it depends on like the specifics of the situation, like the person and stuff like that. But if they've gone from vegan to anti-vegan and they're not. It's not like they've been like, I've considered these points and because of the balance of things, like I've gone this way, but I'm open to vegans like convincing me or whatever. If they're just going for it and they're just like pure anti-vegan, because I think if someone was reasonable but they'd become ex-vegan, and it was for some, like, they still were like, you know, I understand what is happening to animals is bad, but for some personal reason or something, I'm not going to be vegan. Like, I think if you were that sort of person and you were legit, you wouldn't be posting it all over social media.
Right.
You wouldn't, like, okay, like, I think you're wrong, but if you're being non-vegan, like, personally, I think your logic is twisted, but at least you think you've got some grounding.
Right.
But if you're going and promoting like abuse to animals, like, what? Like,
Yeah,
what are
exactly.
you?
Yeah.
So that, like, if they're actively promoting, then I think they've stepped over a line, and I think it's open season, and I think go for it. Like, okay, don't be a complete dick to the person, because then you'll just look like a dick.
Right. It's got to be yeah.
But like, criticize them
publicly,
all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, publicly denounce them and denounce their points and argue them and debate them. If you've got, if you've got the mental strength for it, and if you can just stay calm and not get worked up, because there's no use getting worked up about these people. You know, there are millions and millions of other people that you could talk to that are going to be more worth your time. So it just depends on you as an individual. It could be good for you just to ignore them completely, or if you fancy it and you feel like you've got what it takes to do something, like, you know, you could go after them a little bit publicly and try and, like, again, like, denounce what they're saying and stuff. I think it just totally depends. And what you said is totally right about that some people can be convinced the other way. I mean, we had Thoughtbat. I don't know if you remember the guy debated on here.
Yeah.
He was like an ex-vegan. He was like, yeah, I'll come on and debate you. I'll come on and debate you. And it turned out like he'd been an activist. He'd been anonymous, sort of voiceless. And when we got to the bottom of it, all that had happened was he just was no longer convinced by the previous way he was seeing the world. Like, he was like a utilitarian, which basically he was looking at the world of like, you know, what's the easiest way to explain it? Like, he was trying to create a better world for like the masses or whatever. It's like, what can I do to make things better for everybody else, and including animals? Basically, this was his worldview. That's why he was vegan. And then he changed his worldview to this different one called egoism. You know, these are philosophical ways of like living or seeing the world. And this one was just very like, there is no good or bad. That's what he switched to. There is no objective good or bad. So it's all based on what you think. And if you think it's good, then it is good. And that's it. This was his new worldview, right? So in this way of seeing the world, he was like, I miss bacon or whatever, right? So, okay, I'm going to have it because it's good. And that's it then. That's my new worldview. There's no objective good or bad. I want it. I'm going to eat it. It's good. This is what he switched to. And all it took to now he's vegan. And all it took to make him realize that this is messed up and was to show him that actually you still are a vegan in your head. You've just convinced yourself, like, to, you know, based on taste pleasure, to go and eat animals again. And you don't support animal abuse. Therefore, in your subjective world, your subjective good or bad, animal abuse is bad. So why are you paying for it? Right. And it was that simple. And it was like that was the basic of the debate, basic point of the debate. And then he emailed me like a day later saying like, you're totally right. What was I doing? Like, what the hell was I doing? You know, it was crazy. He woke up immediately and was like, oh my God, like, I've just fooled myself. So sometimes people just fall off, get into these weird mindsets where like they try and justify it. And sometimes all it takes is someone like you or I to be like, hey mate, like, you don't stand by this. What are you doing, man? That's not cool. You don't believe this stuff that you're doing. You know, you're against this. And then they're like, oh yeah, I am. What the hell was I doing? You know, and then you feel guilty, and then, you know, fix the problem.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it can happen is the point. It can happen.
Yeah. I guess he's one of those, like, one of the reasonable ones. But I mean, we can both think of people who are just the complete unreasonable ones.
Oh yeah.
And I think another sign of them being unreasonable or disingenuous is if they say they're doing it for health reasons, but then they go completely the other way and start eating things that are clearly not for the benefit of your health. You know, like if in some random universe I found out I had to have some form of animal protein to survive, I would eat the most minimal amount from like oysters or something because they're like the the lowest down on how if they can feel pain and stuff like that. But these people, they go straight for salmon or eggs, or like they go to a steakhouse, and it's like, come on, like
yeah,
we all see through it.
No, totally, yeah. And then it's just they've just convinced themselves of some stupid shit. Most likely from this propaganda we were talking about earlier, probably helped them along there. I just want to put one comment up here. It's quite funny. I just spotted it in the comments, and then it's not relevant to what we're saying here, but they're having a debate of their own in the comments. This person says, I think that if you gave a sheep's limb to a child from 2,000 years ago, he would eat it without any hesitation. Apparently that's some kind of reason to not be vegan. Mate, if you gave a fucking stick to a child, they would chew on it. Like children are pretty stupid. So,
Yeah, I was going to say, if someone's in the comments trying to base their like moral justifications on what a child does, they need to reassess their life choices.
That kind of argument that I've heard, that Earthling Ed, I think, is one of the first ones to use it, maybe the first, or maybe it was Gary Yourofsky, where it's like, if you give a baby an apple or a bunny, they would eat the apple and play with the bunny. I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily true. They would probably chew on the bunny too if babies and children are...
if they're teething.
Right, if they're teething. And also, that's how young babies and toddlers, that's how they discover. They put things in their mouth. They eat coins and shit. You know what I mean? This is part of them discovering the world. So they wouldn't eat the rabbit, but they might put the rabbit in the mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice little bit of like symbolism or whatever, but as an actual argument, it's not. Like...
They would, don't they? And I've seen a few people criticize that point. Parents who are like, I found my kid like chewing on basically like the most random things. It's like they would absolutely chew on the rabbit if they could. So it's quite a funny one. But yeah, don't base your morals on what children do or don't put in their mouth, or what anyone does or doesn't put in their mouth. I mean, geez, if we based all our ethics on what people put in their mouths, we'd have a very interesting and weird world, wouldn't we? All right, it's been good to have you here, man. I think we've covered all the things I wanted to cover and got to the bottom of this. I think I'll leave this up on this channel. So guys, if you want to share this, feel free to share it around. If anybody wants to watch like a long form video about this topic, this is going to be up on the channel, and I'll look into doing a shorter, more punchy video as well. So Lawrence, people can find you on YouTube, Lawrence Anton, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Sweet. And you don't do vegan content though. You do antinatalist content. You child hater.
Yeah, exactly. So if you hate children and you want to see them burn, then come over.
Definitely get over that. He fucking hates kids. Yeah, go and give him a...
That's a joke, just for anyone who doesn't get irony.
I mean, I don't know if it is a joke, but okay, yeah, cool. Well, so go check out Lawrence's channel, see if you agree with his child-hating content, and if you don't, get in the comments and let him know. And remember, guys, the comment section for this video will be below the video, so come back and leave some comments there as well. Tell us all what you think about these theories under the video, because it really helps the engagement. YouTube sees that and they're like, oh, look at this video getting lots of engagement. We'll push it out further. So please make sure you come back and do that. So YouTube will make it more popular and more people will see it. And that really helps me in the channel. So yeah, cool. Thanks again, Lawrence.
Nice one.
Thanks again, everyone. Keep calling out the bullshit. Catch you in the next one.